This happened about 15 years ago. I was 17 and spent every summer at Camp Whispering Pines. I remember the fun, the campfires, and the friends I made. But returning now, it feels different. The cabins look old and creaky, the paths are overgrown, and the mess hall is empty. It makes me uneasy. I've thought about this place many times. I figured if I came back, I might find some answers. I walked to the campfire site where we told stories and roasted marshmallows. I expected to feel warmth, but instead it was cold. I sat down on the logs, trying to remember the good times. My hands shook a little, but I brushed it off. I noticed something half buried in the dirt, an old box. I dug it out, tossing dirt aside. It was heavy and musty. As I opened it, dust swirled around me. Inside were old photographs. Faces I used to know smiled back, but one photo caught my eye. It was blurry, almost like something was moving in the background. I squinted. My stomach twisted. Maybe it was just a trick of the light. That night, I dreamt about that blurry figure. I woke up cold, and the shadow stuck with me. I thought I heard whispers outside my cabin. I wasn't sure if I imagined it or if something was out there. I kept walking around the camp, feeling more unsettled each time. I heard laughter that suddenly stopped. The air felt heavier near the woods. I found Tom, an old camp counselor. He looked tired and worn. I told him my memories were foggy. He stared at me, and his face went pale. "Some things are better left forgotten," he said, his voice low. My heart raced. Did he know something? That night, I looked out my window. The trees looked dark and twisted. I thought I saw movement, and my breath caught. I stood still, listening. Something was out there. I didn't want to look, but I felt drawn to it. Then I heard a voice, deep and raspy. "Emma." I turned quickly, but nobody was there. The chill ran down my spine. Where did the other campers go? I wished I could remember more. I felt like I was being pulled back into something I didn't understand. Each day felt heavier, like I was unraveling a thread that led to something dark. I returned to the campfire site, hoping it would be different. I sat there, staring into the dark. I heard crickets and rustling leaves, but then it went quiet. I felt a presence. It was like someone was watching. Then I saw the blurry figure again, lurking just beyond the trees. I was frozen in place. My heart raced, and I wanted to run. But part of me needed to know. Maybe I didn't want to remember. But now it felt like I had no choice. I couldn't shake the feeling of being watched. My instincts screamed at me. But I felt glued to my spot. The figure was there, just outside the trees, shadows swirling around it like smoke. I blinked, trying to convince myself I imagined it, but it didn't go away. Then, without warning, it stepped into the weak light of the moon. It was a child. My breath caught. I knew this face, though it was older now. I'd seen it in the photographs, a girl with curly hair and a crooked smile. Lisa. She had always been the life of the camp. "Lisa," I whispered, stepping forward. The moment I spoke her name, she vanished behind the trees. Panic set in. Was she real or just a memory? I felt dizzy, trying to understand. Every summer, we had shared secrets and laughter. But now, she was lost, just like everything else. I needed answers. I reached into my pocket, fumbling for my phone. No signal. It didn't matter. I was too anxious to call anyone. Instead, I headed back toward the cabins. I wanted to ask Tom about Lisa. His warning echoed in my mind. Some things are better left forgotten. The pathway was darker. The trees seemed to lean in closer, and every snap of a twig made my heart race. As I reached the mess hall, a sinking feeling enveloped me.
I pushed the door open, and an awful smell greeted me. Moldy, like something that had been left to rot. I flipped on my phone's flashlight, scanning the empty room. Nothing stirred, except a breeze that rustled the old benches. Then something caught my eye. A scrap of fabric caught on the edge of the table. I walked closer and saw a little patch of red cloth. My chest tightened. It was a piece of a camp t-shirt. A few more steps led me to a path of similar scraps scattered across the floor. Each piece felt like a breadcrumb leading me deeper into something I didn't want to confront. Emma. The voice echoed again, this time closer. It was muffled, weak. My heart pounded in my ears. Should I keep going? I turned to leave, but the hairs on my neck stood up. I felt a presence behind me. Taking a deep breath, I turned back, my flashlight illuminating one corner. The light caught movement, and I gasped. Standing there was the blurry figure again, now more defined. It was Lisa. Only she looked different. Her gaze was hollow, and beneath her smile was something sinister. Then her mouth opened. "It's your fault, Emma," she said, and the world around me darkened. I stumbled backward, but there was nowhere to go. The shadows twisted and turned into forms I couldn't understand. The full weight of memories flooded my mind. The laughter, the fun, the moment things changed. And then I remembered. "Wait," I screamed. "What happened to you?" But the answer came not from her lips. Instead, the darkness swallowed her whole, leaving me alone with doubts and panic.
The mess hall grew colder. I felt the history of this camp pressing down on me. There were truths I wasn't ready to face, and the shadow of those lost campers loomed large. I had no more time. I needed to leave. But what if I didn't understand why? At that moment, I realized my own memories were fading too. This chapter in my life was far from finished. I stumbled out of the mess hall, gasping for fresh air. The cool night wrapped around me, but it offered little comfort. My mind raced with questions, the lingering vision of Lisa haunting me. What did she mean? What had happened at this camp that I had buried so deep? I shook my head, trying to clear it, but the words, "It's your fault, Emma," echoed relentlessly. I needed to find Tom. Maybe he had answers, or at least he could help me piece together the fragmented memories suffocating me. The path back to the cabins was flanked by trees, gnarled branches reaching like fingers in the dim light. Shadows danced wildly around me, and I quickened my pace, every rustle setting my nerves on edge. As I approached the cabin, I noticed a flickering light coming from inside. In my gut, I felt both hope and dread. Had Tom stayed up, or was someone else here? I took a deep breath and knocked. "Tom?" I called, my voice trembling. The door creaked open, and the light spilled out. It was Tom, looking older than I remembered, the lines on his face carved from worry. "Emma!" Relief washed over his features, but it faded quickly. "What happened? You look like you've seen a ghost." "I think I did," I said, stepping inside. "I saw Lisa. She's different." My voice faltered. I didn't want to burden him with everything just yet. His eyes darkened. "You shouldn't be here alone at night. There are things you need to forget." I shook my head, frustration boiling over. "But I can't. I saw her, Tom. I need to know what happened." He glanced over his shoulder, as if expecting someone to come through the door at any moment. "This isn't a game, Emma. Some things are buried for a reason." Confused, I pushed forward, my desire for answers fueling me. I found scraps of fabric in the mess hall, and her voice, it kept calling my name. Tom's expression shifted to disbelief. "You found the t-shirts? They've been missing for years." "What do you mean?" I pressed. "What happened to the campers? To Lisa?" His silence felt like a lead weight. Then he sighed, tension radiating off him like heat. "We don't talk about that. It's part of the camp's dark history. What history? My heart raced, intense curiosity mingling with fear. Tom hesitated, chewing on his words. Finally, he whispered, "There was an accident. The campers, they went into the woods, and some of them never came back." I felt the ground shift beneath me.
Accident? What kind of accident? Before he could answer, the lights flickered and went out, plunging us into darkness. A chill crept over me, and I held my breath, straining to hear anything beyond the pounding of my heart. Then I heard it again, a whisper, faint but clear. "Emma." "Did you hear that?" I gasped, my pulse racing. Tom shook his head, panic rising in his eyes. "We need to leave, now." Suddenly, there was a crash outside, a cacophony of noise that sent us both jumping. "There's something out there," I said, fear pooling in my stomach. Tom grabbed my arm, pulling me back toward the door. "We have to go. We're not safe here." His urgency jolted me into action. We stepped outside, and my heart sank as I saw dark figures moving between the trees. They were not just shadows. They were people, lost, wandering, and looking for something, or someone. "Run!" Tom shouted, and we took off into the forest, the whispers growing louder around us. I didn't know what we were running from, but deep down, I feared it might be the truth I was searching for. The forest swallowed us as we ran, branches tearing at my clothes and skin like unseen hands. I barely registered the pain, too overwhelmed by the chaos swirling in my head. Who were those figures? Were they lost campers? Ghosts of the past? Or something worse? "Keep going," Tom urged, his grip firm on my arm, pulling me deeper into the thicket. My lungs burned, but the fear pushed me onward. I could hardly see where I was going, and my heart raced faster with every step. The whispers surrounded us, a chorus of familiar voices that echoed in the dark. "Just hold on," Tom yelled, glancing back nervously. His face twisted in fear, drawing me closer to the panic looming over us. "We need to get to the old shelter. It's safer there." I nodded, though my mind raced with questions. What had happened here? The urgency to find answers clashed with the terror of what we might discover. I was trapped in a cycle of confusion, and it only deepened with every moment. Suddenly, we burst out of the trees and stumbled into a clearing. The moonlight illuminated an old wooden structure, half collapsed and overgrown. It was the shelter Tom mentioned. We dashed for the entrance, our footsteps loud against the wooden floor. "Close the door," Tom shouted as he slipped inside, pulling me with him. He hastily shut the creaking door behind us, encasing us in a thick darkness that even the moonlight couldn't penetrate. We huddled together, catching our breaths. "What the hell was that?" I gasped, clearly rattled. The adrenaline coursed through my veins, and my heart still thudded in my chest like a drum. "The lost campers," Tom said between breaths, his voice shaky. "They disappear when the moon is full. They wander the forest, trying to find their way back home."
"What? Didn't you tell me this before?" I exploded, frustration mixing with fear. "This is insane, Tom. We could be in real danger." "I thought it was just a campfire story," he admitted, looking even more troubled. "I didn't want you to get involved in something you couldn't understand." I pressed my hands to my temples, feeling the walls of reality close in. "I need to understand, Tom. It's not over yet. Lisa is part of this, and I can feel it. We can't just hide here." He stared at me, uncertainty flickering in his eyes. "What do you mean?" "I remember more," I said slowly, my voice trembling. "I think—" I hesitated, piecing the fragments of memory together. "I think something happened between us. Something—" A shudder ran through me. Before Tom could respond, the air grew colder. The whispers returned, sharper, more distinct, wrapping around us like a noose. "Emma, help us." The voices combined into a haunting melody, pulling at something deep within me.
"Do you hear that?" I asked, dread gripping my throat. Tom glanced around, his eyes wide with fear. "We have to get out of here." That's when I saw it. A flash of white. A figure standing outside the shelter, silhouetted against the moonlight. My breath caught in my throat as recognition washed over me. "Lisa?" I whispered, hope intertwining with dread. But before I could say her name again, the figure turned sharply and began to fade into the trees. "Wait!" I shouted, but Tom pulled me further into the shelter, gripping my shoulder tightly. "Don't follow it, Emma. It's a trap." But I was already stepping toward the door, heart racing. I had to know. There was no turning back now. I gripped the doorknob, hesitation flooding my veins. "Tom, I have to go. I can't just stay here while she—" "No, you don't understand what you're inviting." His panic intensified as he pulled me back, but something deep inside me stirred, an undeniable urge to find Lisa, to confront whatever shadows haunted us. "Let me go," I protested, wrenching my arm free. I knew he was scared, but I felt a pull toward the darkness beyond the threshold. The whispers grew louder, each syllable sharp and urgent. "Emma, help us." I swung the door open, the hinges groaning in protest as the cold night air rushed in. I squinted into the silvery darkness, my heart hammering against my ribcage. "Lisa," I cried out again, hoping against hope. My voice felt weak and fragile, swallowed by the vastness of the woods. Then I saw it, a flicker of white movement darting between the trees. I dashed forward, adrenaline igniting every nerve. "She's here," I called to Tom, glancing back momentarily. His face twisted with both fear and anger, like a lifeline I was unwilling to grasp. "Emma, don't!" he shouted, but I felt tethered to the eerie energy surrounding me. I moved deeper into the thicket, weaving through shadows. The branches lashed against my skin, but I couldn't feel the pain. All that mattered was finding her. "Where are you?" I whispered, trying to quell the rising panic inside me. My breath came fast and shallow as I ventured deeper into the forest. Suddenly, I stumbled into a small grove. The moonlight broke through the canopy, illuminating a stone structure partially buried in dirt and vines, an abandoned well. My heart dropped at the sight. I remembered it vividly from summer camp, the stories the kids told of how a camper went missing, the whispers of a curse that shrouded the place. "Lisa!" I yelled again, my voice echoing against the stones, my heart thrumming with a mix of hope and dread. But the only response was silence. The whispers began to rise again, a cacophony of voices, drawing closer. "Emma, help us." I approached the well, peering inside. Darkness swallowed everything below. "What happened to you?" I murmured, tears stinging my eyes. The well felt like a graveyard for memories, a reminder of everything that had gone wrong. Then I heard a sound, a soft whimper, coming from the depths. My pulse quickened. "Is that you?" I leaned closer, trying to make sense of it all. "If this is Lisa, just say something." Silence. Just when I thought I had lost it, a hand shot out from the opening, pale as bone. My heartbeat echoed in my ears. I stumbled back, falling against a tree, fear clawing its way up my spine. "Stay back!" Tom's voice boomed. He rushed in, grabbing my arm with a vice-like grip, pulling me away as more shadows slinked toward us. "I don't want to," I cried, fighting against him as I glanced back at the well, terrified yet enthralled. "I need to help her." But tremble shivers danced down my spine as I turned to see the darkness shifting and forming shapes, figures slipping from the shadows, their faces contorted in anguish. "There's no way you're going in there," Tom shouted, his face pale with fear. The whispers rose to a fever pitch, terrible and beautiful. "Emma, help us." I realized then, with a sinking sensation, that this was only the beginning. These figures weren't just lost campers. They were calling to me for a reason, and I wasn't sure I could escape without finding out why. Then something flickered behind Tom. I turned to see more ghosts emerging from the trees, their eyes fixed on me, sadness and desperation etched on their faces. My breath caught in my throat, and all I could think was, where did this end? Tom pulled me backward, his grip tightening as he shouted, "We need to go, now!" I felt like I was being torn between two worlds, one that lay in front of me, filled with the urgency of those lost souls, and the other that was desperately trying to pull me back to safety. "Let go of me, Tom!" I shouted, grasping his wrist with enough force to loosen his hold. "They need help!" My eyes darted back to the figures emerging from the dark, their expressions a mix of despair and yearning that made my heart ache. I could sense their pain, and it resonated with something deep within me. Suddenly, one of the ghosts stepped closer. She was a young girl, her features soft yet haunting, her eyes impossibly bright against her ethereal form. "Emma," she whispered, her voice trembling like leaves in the wind. "Please, help us." My voice faltered. I felt a surge of recognition, but it was buried beneath a haze of fear. "Who are you?" I managed to stammer. "Help us escape," she implored, reaching her hand out. It felt like an invitation, but a part of me wanted to run. I took a hesitant step forward, drawn to her the way a moth is to a flame. "No!" Tom shouted, his breath heavy with panic. "This isn't real." He pulled me back again, his face flushed with urgency. "Emma, please, think about what you're doing." But my heart was racing, and the whispers echoed in my mind, urging me forward. I glanced back at Tom, who looked completely lost. I could almost see the struggle in his eyes, the desire to protect me, mingling with the terror of what lay ahead. The ghostly girl smiled sadly. "You're stronger than you think," she said. "You can help us, but you must choose." "Choose what?" I asked, my voice barely above a whisper. "Between fear and courage," she replied, her tone soothing yet charged with tension. "We can show you the truth." Before I could respond, Tom launched forward, gripping my arm more fiercely than ever. "We have to leave," he insisted, glancing around as the figures started to close in, the air thickening with their sorrow. I wavered between my desire to uncover the truth and the primal instinct to flee. "I can't just turn my back on them." "Emma," Tom pleaded, urgency flaring in his eyes. "If this is what I think it is, we could be in serious danger." I tore my gaze from the ghostly girl, searching for something, anything, that validated his fear. But all I saw was desperation. I shook my head vigorously. "I have to know if there's something I can do." And then, behind Tom, I saw movement from the well. A dark, swirling shadow manifested, thick and sinister. My breath caught as I recognized it was unlike the figures around us, darker and more tangible, as if it had a will of its own. "Emma, run!" Tom grabbed my other arm, swinging me around with enough force to make me stumble. The shadows recoiled at my movement, but the darkness from the well surged forward. I turned back to the ghostly girl with tears in my eyes. "I'm sorry," I whispered, but it felt like a betrayal. That's when I saw it, a glimmering object rising from the well. It sparkled against the blackness like a star emerging from a dark
night sky. "What is that?" I exclaimed, pointing. But before I could move toward it, the shadow lunged forward, wrapping around Tom's legs like chains. I screamed, "Tom!" His eyes widened in horror as he sank to the ground, the darkness pulling him in. I felt a chill claw at my spine, realizing the figure in the well was more than a mere shadow. It was hungry. I ripped myself free from Tom's grasp, my instincts screaming at me to run, to escape this nightmare before it consumed us. But the light in the well drew me like a moth, an answer to the growing chaos. What choice would I make now? The air felt electric, charged with panic, as I took a hesitant step toward the well and its glimmering promise. I could hear Tom's frantic cries fading in the distance, replaced by an overwhelming urge to understand what that light meant. I have to do this, I whispered to myself, even as every part of me screamed to run. I approached the edge of the well, the darkness curling around Tom like lethal smoke. My fingers trembled as I reached out for the luminous object that floated just above the swirling shadows. It was a small silver key, glinting like a beacon of hope, or perhaps of doom. "What do you want?" I muttered, the words barely escaping my lips. "Emma, please!" Tom's voice cut through the chaos, desperate and raw. I glanced back at him, his body straining against the shadowy bindings. His eyes were wide with fear, and that fear sliced through my uncertainty. But as I turned back to the well, I felt a surge of resolve. "If I can find a way to help you," I said to the ghostly girl, who still lingered near the edge, "then I can help him." Suddenly, the shadows writhed, reacting to my decision. The more I focused on the light, the stronger its pull became. The key trembled in the air, as if aware of my intentions. I reached for it. My fingers brushed against the cool metal, and a pulse surged through me, electrifying and terrifying. That's when the ground beneath me shifted. I staggered as cracks spiderwebbed across the stone, and a low growl echoed from the depths of the well. I felt an icy hand grip my heart, squeezing tight. "What is happening?" I gasped, fear overtaking my breath. "Emma, no!" Tom's shout broke my focus completely. I turned to him, meeting his gaze, but with that, the key slipped from my fingers. It fell into the well, disappearing into the darkness below. "Don't!" he shouted again, pulling at the chains that held him prisoner. "We have to go. It's not worth it." But something deep inside me told me I had been chosen for this moment. "What if it is?" I said, my voice shaky but unwavering. "What if I'm the only one who can save you?" The shadows responded, a deep growl reverberating like
thunder. They stretched toward me, their presence darkening my vision. I could feel that they were angry. They were waking up. "Emma!" Tom screamed, and I rushed back, adrenaline coursing through my veins. I had to make a choice between running away or stepping into uncertainty. I was too close to the edge now. What did I want? Was it curiosity, courage, or something else entirely? Then everything went dark. The shadows surged forward, enveloping my vision. Liquid shadows poured over me, cold and angry, as I struggled against their grip. I couldn't breathe. But in that suffocating moment, a thought broke through. The ghostly girl had said I was strong. With a fierce determination, I pushed against the darkness. "Let him go!" I shouted. "Let us both go!" But the shadows just twisted tighter, and a chilling laughter echoed in response, one that felt hauntingly familiar. And then, just as suddenly, a blinding light erupted from the well, illuminating everything. The shadows recoiled, and I felt weightless, my heart pounding with a mix of dread and hope. As the light engulfed me, I didn't know what was coming. I didn't know who or what would be waiting on the other side. But I realized I wasn't just fighting for Tom. I was fighting for me, too. What had I unleashed by reaching for that key? I was floating. That was the first thing I realized. The blinding light around me felt warm, almost comforting, but the weightlessness made me dizzy. I blinked, trying to gather my thoughts, but all I could manage was a whirl of confusion. Suddenly, scenes from my past flickered through the light. Memories came rushing back. Those carefree days at summer camp, the laughter by the lake, the shadowy woods just beyond the clearing, and the electrifying sense of adventure that always hung in the air. I squeezed my eyes shut to block it out. This wasn't the time for nostalgia. I opened my eyes again, and the light began to fade, giving way to a new setting. I stood in the middle of what appeared to be a forest, but it felt unfamiliar. The trees loomed taller, their branches twisting like skeletal fingers. Shadows pooled around the trunks, dark and ominous. Yet I could still see the remnants of that golden light flickering around. "Tom?" I called out, my voice trembling. I turned in circles, searching for him, hoping he had followed me somehow. But I was alone. Then I stumbled upon the ghostly girl from the well, standing just ahead, her face painted with bitter sorrow. She looked different here, more tangible, more alive, even though she was translucent. "You came," she whispered, her voice soft, yet echoing through the trees. What happened? Where is Tom?" Panic tightened my chest. "You chose to confront the darkness," she said, her tone grave. "But it's not just his life at stake. This is about you, too." "What do you mean?" I stepped closer, trying to keep my mind clear. "What do you want from me?" The girl pointed toward a darkened path that forked into two. "You must choose," she said, her eyes filled with urgency. "One path leads to him, the other to the truth of what you fear most." "My fear?" I echoed, overwhelmed. "What do you know about me?" She smiled sadly, a knowing gaze that chilled me to my bones. "More than you realize. But if you truly wish to help him, you have to face what you've buried." Without thinking, I took a step toward the right path, toward Tom. But hesitation gripped me. What if the other path held answers I needed? In that moment of indecision, the shadows crept closer, swirling at my feet like thick mist. "Choose, Emma," the girl urged, her voice almost drowned by the sinister whispers rising from the gloom. I felt trapped, caught between love and fear, hope and uncertainty. Then, just as the shadows reached for me, I saw it, a flicker of light at the end of the left path. Maybe it would guide me somewhere safe. Before I could second-guess myself, I dashed toward it. The shadows hissed behind me, their voices rising in distress. "You cannot run from what you are," one shrieked, and I shuddered, pushing myself faster. That's when I heard it, the distant echo of Tom's voice calling my name. My heart ached for him, for our connection, for all the reasons I couldn't abandon him now. But new questions clawed at my mind. What were the shadows after? What would happen if I found my truth? I couldn't help but wonder as I sprinted toward the light. Would it offer clarity, or would it lead me deeper into darkness? And then I realized the choice wasn't just about Tom anymore. It was about me, facing everything I had avoided. What awaited me down that path? As I ran down the left path, the flickering light grew brighter, illuminating the way ahead. My heart raced with every step, a mixture of fear and determination driving me forward. I could still hear Tom's voice, faint but persistent, weaving through the air like an echoing chant. Then the light morphed into shapes, twisting and shifting. I stumbled, my breath catching as visions flooded my mind. There I was, just a kid again, at summer camp, huddled with my friends around a fire. Laughter filled the air, but something in my gut felt wrong. I remembered feeling watched, like something lurked just beyond the trees. "Emma!" Tom's voice cut through my reverie, pulling me back to the present. I pressed on, determined to find him, but shadows flanked me now, swirling and hissing as if aware of my journey. They beckoned me with whispers full of secrets I didn't want to hear. "Why did you come here?" they taunted, their voices disorienting. "No, I'm not staying," I shouted back, the words tumbling out in desperation. Suddenly, I stopped in my tracks. The scene in front of me shifted again, and there it was, a dilapidated cabin standing eerily at the end of the path. Broken windows stared back at me like empty eyes. I could feel dread clawing at my throat. The memories began to unfold. The summer camp was a backdrop for something deeper. I saw faces I had forgotten, kids I used to know. One face rose above the others. Lily, the girl who had gone missing years ago. A chill washed over me as I remembered the night we all searched for her. "Lily!" I called out unconsciously. "Where are you?" Nothing answered but the rustling leaves and the bitter wind. The shadows thickened, slithering closer, wrapping around my ankles like icy tendrils. "Face your past, Emma," they hissed. I felt a rush of anger and shame. Lily had been my closest friend. I always thought about how I had lingered by the campfire instead of searching for her. The guilt had gnawed at me, wrapped in layers of what-ifs. A sudden thought struck me. If confronting the past meant facing the truth of that summer, perhaps it would unlock the darkness that held Tom captive. Taking a breath, I approached the cabin, my heart hammering in my chest. The door creaked open as if it knew my intentions. The air was thick with the smell of rot and decay. As I stepped inside, the shadows swirled more violently, their whispers escalating to a frantic roar. I had no choice but to move deeper, searching for answers that had haunted me for years. Then I saw it, a faded photograph pinned to the wall, a group of us at camp, Lily grinning wide in the center. But beneath it, scribbled in a spidery hand, were the words, "Some secrets are meant to stay buried." Panic flooded me. What had I stumbled upon? Before I could step back, the shadows lunged forward, enveloping me in darkness, and I screamed. I felt the shadows wrap around me, chilling my bones, pressing in tightly, like I was drowning in an endless abyss. But just as despair threatened to consume me, a flicker of that same warm light from the well burst through the darkness, pushing the shadows back momentarily. In that radiant space, I could see Lily's smiling face in the photograph, her eyes alight with joy, and I instinctively reached out for her. "Help me!" I screamed into the murky depths. But the whispers converged, drowning out my plea. "You let her down, Emma. You left her," they chanted, each voice laced with accusation. It was true. I hadn't been brave enough. I had stayed with the others, keeping warm by the fire, while Lily disappeared into the night. "Stop!" I shouted, forcing my way past their words. "I didn't know. I was scared. The weight of my guilt surged inside me, threatening to pull me into defeat. But I can't run from it anymore. I want to be free. With those words, I willed the light to grow. A deep breath steadied my heart, and I focused on the warmth that had once felt so distant. "I'll face the truth," I declared, embracing the memories I had pushed aside. I remembered the cries for Lily in the night, the desperate searching, the fear of what we might find. I remembered how we had all looked, huddled together in the cold, the disappointment that haunted us when our search went futile. As I stood amidst the chaos, my voice rose above the cacophony. "Lily, I'm sorry. I'm sorry I didn't find you. I need to know the truth. Can you forgive me?" For a heartbeat, the air was still. Then, from the depths of the shadows, I saw a figure take shape. Luminescent and shimmering, it was Lily. Her face was no longer a memory, but a vibrant presence, and her eyes, those eyes, held an understanding that broke through the confusion. "I've waited for someone to face it," she said, her voice even, commanding. It washed over me like a gentle rain, easing the tension. "You can set us free." "Free?" I echoed, confused. "What does that mean?" She smiled faintly, glimmering against the encroaching shadows. "This place holds us captive, Emma, but your acknowledgement, your courage, gives us a chance. You need to accept what happened, not just to me, but to everyone." My heart raced as I struggled with what I had to do. "But how?" I stammered. "How can I change anything that's already happened?" "The path you've chosen is a testament to your strength. You came here to confront your fear." Her voice resonated, clear against the haunting whispers that still swirled. "Choose compassion, choose to remember, and choose to let us go." I looked around at the shadows, swirling maliciously, and began to realize they were no longer just figments of my fear. They were memories, heavy and dark. They needed a voice too. "Lily, I will remember you. I won't let the fear win." I yelled into the darkness, a newfound strength welling up inside me. We were kids. We didn't understand everything. But I will tell our story. I will honor you. The shadows stilled, and in that moment I felt the gravity of what I had unleashed. The air shimmered, the darkness trembled, and the edges of the cabin began to dissolve. The truth was not just about the absence of fear, but the embrace of love, the innocence we all shared. I felt a sudden pull, a surge of energy as the memories surged up through me. The cabin trembled, and the whispers turned into songs. "Help us" became "thank you." And then the light enveloped me fully, blasting through the darkness, bathing me in warmth and love, stripping away the weight of regret. The shadows retreated, merging into the blinding light, and just as my heart soared, I realized someone else was with me. "Emma!" It was Tom. His voice broke through my consciousness, filled with relief and urgency. As the light faded, we were thrust back into the clearing, standing amidst the trees as the moon cast its silvery glow above us. The shadows were gone, and although a heart broke knowing I had said goodbye to the past, I felt different, lighter. But underneath the calm, questions still lingered. What truly lay buried? What would become of Lisa's memory, or the other campers? I glanced at Tom, lost for words. Are you all right?" he asked, concern draping over his features. "Yeah, we're free now," I replied, unsure if I fully understood what that meant. The camp felt different, lighter somehow, as if the past had lifted. But I still had unfinished business, both with the camp and with what remained unspoken. As we turned to leave, a strange comfort settled over me. I had stepped into darkness, but emerged with fragments of understanding. The journey wasn't complete, and maybe the most profound realizations awaited me outside the camp. With every step I took away from Camp Whispering Pines, I felt the weight of memory melding into insight. I might never fully grasp everything that happened, but perhaps that was okay. Some things remain unexplainable, and some stories are meant to be whispered, echoing through the woods forever, both haunting and beautiful. What would I tell others? Some answers may have eluded me, but I had learned to carry those truths with grace. I finally understood fear could be an anchor or a sail. It was my choice how to navigate through it. Perhaps that was the real journey I had embarked upon all along.